So this one's been going around. This one's been going around a little bit. Because Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh thought it would be smart after losing an election like crazy in the midterms on essentially the topic of abortion. They decided, you know what? Let's also go after gay marriage. Seems like a viable use of our platform's time. Seems like something that's a very popular message that we can get across instead of tripling down on the hyper-conservative people we hope live in the United States. Man, all right.
Joining us online is Matt Walsh, host of The Matt Walsh Show on Daily Wire Plus and star of the massive hit documentary, What is a Woman? Matt recently appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast where he defended a traditional marriage.
And he got fucking clipped. He got clipped so hard, dude. Matt Walsh got incredibly clipped. I feel like there are so many pause screens where he looks like that angry gif where the person it has a little cat and they go like this and then the eyebrows are on it and it's mad, or is it a bear or something? He looks exactly like that. His eyebrows are tremendous.
In the face of Joe's cynicism on this particular issue. Matt, thanks so much for joining the show. Great to talk to you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So the Senate is supposed to bring up
Matt Walsh always. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I would rather hang out with Ben Shapiro. It's not close either. Ben Shapiro seems willing to have a chummy time with somebody, even if it's a fake chummy time. You know what I mean? Even if he's like suburban white dude chummy. Matt Walsh is just a fucking piece of shit all the time. This is one of his good friends. This is how Matt Walsh acts with one of his good buddies. I just can't imagine that. I am friendlier to people I genuinely hope die than Matt Walsh is with one of his buds. Say something nice? No! Why would you redeem that right now? Okay. Okay, so I just said something nice about Ben, so I think that counts for the record. I think him being someone that I would have... How about this? Okay. I would smoke weed with both of them at the same time. I would be in this rotation. Because you know what would happen? Is these two would take like one hit each, be blasted out of their minds. I would have a lot of weed to smoke because they would be like, no, I'm good. And I think it would be really funny to see both of them in a situation where they were just in my living room eating pizza and forced to be a common man. Matt Walsh would be so uncomfortable being anywhere with anybody. He must just have tremendous anxiety at all times. Oh, God. Oh, no. Matt Walsh is trying really hard to be masculine all the time. I'm on some conspiracy bullshit, guys. I think Matt Walsh is incredibly insecure about his manhood. Do you ever notice that? Like, he tries to do this deep voice thing. He's like, oh, I've got a full beard. And I only talk about how being a man is all about stoicism. And I got to be a certain way. And even around everybody else, I got to be uncomfortable. And I got to be mean all the time. And I got to be, I've seen dudes like that before.
For a vote, I believe today, the so-called Respect for Marriage Act, which actually just is not respect for marriage. It's respect for same-sex marriage. The act itself supposedly carries provisions that would protect religious freedom. They don't go far enough in that direction, as Roger Severino has written. Also, the simple fact of the matter is that why would Congress even have to pass such a law, considering that the Supreme Court has already determined that same-sex marriage is the law of the land, other than to get Republicans on record supporting the non-true idea that marriage is not between a man and a woman.
So what this actually does, we can read it if you guys want to. Let me read your biddies real quick, just so I don't forget. Ben Shapiro during the midterms, quote, we failed to get the younger generation of voters and we focused too much on culture war stuff instead of policy. To Ben Shapiro this week, we need to go full force in hating the gays. Yeah, exactly. So the Respect for Marriage Act Essentially what it does is if you get married in, I don't know, you get same-sex married, or what I'll say is non-traditional marriage, because it's not necessarily same-sex. Of course, they're going to worry about trans people as well. Like two trans people that are binary, but opposite sex, whatever they are. Just like if they don't present properly to them, like they also don't want that happening. So like if you get married in Michigan, because you can get real gay married in Michigan. You can get as gay as you can think about it. That's how gay you can get married here, because it's just it's a state where you can do a lot of stuff. We have a good shout out to my state of Michigan, underrated state. At every level of the government, Republicans have no control of any level of our government, state government. Just saying. So now community government, some. Anyway, the Respect for Marriage Act, what it does is if you get married in a place where it's legal, the federal government will recognize that union even if it's in a state that won't recognize your union. So it gives you federal protection over your marriage rights even if you go to Florida or wherever you can't get married. Texas, maybe, I don't know, Arizona. Like any of those places that are trying to pass this stuff, you will still have protections. And then there's something about in the state, like the law also won't force states to issue marriage licenses if they don't vote for gay marriage. So it's essentially superseding gay marriage states' rights stuff while still paying lip service to the states' rights argument. So they really have nothing to say against the law if you're opposed to it, except I'm fucking homophobic. So it's a good law. It's very smart. It doesn't protect the right to marry in a state. It means they can't nullify your marriage in a state that is part of the union that doesn't recognize it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's great. It's a great protection, especially because some people are forced to live in certain places that don't respect them.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. And also, I mean, if you can read the language.
It has religious exemptions, which is bullshit. Sure, but they were already going to have religious exemption. The Mormon Church came out in favor of it, I guess. But that's kind of how you do it, right? Like, you can't... We're just not going to... Why pick that fight with the churches when they're not going to do it anyway? And why not just win the culture? You feel me? Because all that does... This is a good thing to me. I don't care. Give religious exemption. All it does is push people away from their fucking churches. And that's a good thing for me. Anything that you can do to have churches self-inflict lower participation rates is a good thing to me. So fuck them. If churches don't want to come around, they don't have to. You'll be left in the dust as every day a new atheist gets its wings.
In that bill and believe that that this is actually going to protect religious liberty, then there's not much we can say to you. That's just that's naivete to the extreme. Obviously, this sets up, among other things, an assault on religious liberty, because if the federal government is declaring from on high that marriage now includes same-sex couples and they're codifying that definition into law, and it's a violation of someone's human rights. If someone has a human right to be involved in a same-sex marriage, then it's not hard to see how eventually this comes down to the churches, and they say to the churches, well, you don't have the right to deprive people of their human rights.
What do you mean? No, it's explicit. The law explicitly has exemptions. We just talked about it.
And the fact that Republicans are apparently signing on to this, it just shows you again the state of the Republican Party. I mean, 10 years ago, certainly 15 years ago, but probably 10 years ago, this would have been considered extreme even on the left. The idea that the federal government is going to decide and codify this issue. And
I disagree. I have wanted this since before. We have been asking for this since before fucking Barack Obama was president, bro. Also realize they just happened to forget that interracial protections have as well. Mitch McConnell voted against it, right? It was Mitch McConnell? Yeah. Lindsey Graham doesn't have a wife. He's a confirmed bachelor, chat. But Mitch McConnell has a wife who is Asian American, and he voted against the protection for interracial marriages. Okay.
But as we
I
so
can't
often
imagine being that much of a cuck.
see, what was extreme far left a decade or decade and a half ago is now something that even conservatives will take part in.
2012? No, it wasn't considered extreme on the left. I know, right? Like 2012.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they're pretending this bill does is, quote unquote, protect religious institutions from having to celebrate or solemnize a same-sex marriage.
Solemnize.
Religious liberty already protects that under the Constitution of the United States. Instead, it apparently adds a rule of construction saying the bill by itself would not deny tax-exempt status, licensing, grants, and contracts, quote unquote, not arising from a marriage. But it actually doesn't do anything to address the problem with this particular issue. I mean, it's a really poorly written amendment by Mitt Romney, particularly Susan Collins as well. There's another amendment that's been proposed to this called the First Amendment Defense Act, proposed by Mike Lee. I noticed they're not voting on that. But put aside the rule of construction, the thing that's really amazing to me is that it is now apparently the law of the land.
Can I just say I'm so glad that I only watched this from like a critical point of view. Can you imagine how often I would have to like reclaim my virginity if I watch this every day? Like every day, this seals you back up. You watch this, you just listen to Ben Shapiro chip away at his words. Well, the construction. It's like, shut up, man. Like, fuck your wife. Every once in a while, like, do something. Do something.
And societal rule that the only rationale that you would possibly have for saying that a marriage is between a man and a woman is because you're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim. That's really the only reason at all. That the only reason will allow you to have these crazy beliefs so long as you can show that they're crazy beliefs. So long as you can show that the reason that you believe that marriage is between a man and a woman is because you read it in a book and because you really believe the book. They keep saying sincere religious belief. I don't even know how you measure sincere religious belief.
I guess I can. It's sort of like porn, right? You just know a devout person when you see it. You know? You see what they got going on. You give them a vibe check, and you're like, okay, that person's lost in the fucking sauce. Ben's one of them.
Are we going to like now monitor how often you go to church or to synagogue, whether you keep kosher or whether you take communion in order to determine your sincere? I mean, the same media that declares that Nancy Pelosi is a sincere religious believer who's just for the mass abortion of unborn children will declare that you, Matt Walsh, are not actively in favor of the things that you're in favor of. You're just a religious bigot. You're a bigot, right? And your religion is a cover for your bigotry. I'm highly annoyed by the constant derogation of non-religious arguments into religious arguments. And this is what the left loves to do. They like to say, you're pro-life. The reason you're pro-life is because of your crazy religion. And so maybe we can respect your crazy religion along those. That is not the argument for marriage. The argument for marriage has literally nothing to do with religion. You could be a visitor from Mars, and you could see that all of human procreation relies on man, woman, child. This is not particularly difficult stuff. By essentially boxing in the argument in favor of traditional marriage into, well, if you're a crazy religious believer, maybe we'll let you have that. But if you're a cake baker, then we're not sure about that, right? I mean, like we're not sure how far this religious.
What do you mean the cake baker thing? What? The cake baker won that, didn't he? Come on, man. What? Why is it like this? Why do we have to always go through the gay marriage shit? Is so fucking tired, bro. If marriage is a thing people can do, then everybody gets to do it.
I hope you have a fantastic day.
Popo, chief of head sex for the 16 months at a suburban conservative white person's idea of a party right now, and I wish I had weed. Oh, fuck. That sounds terrible. God damn, dude. Enjoy. Thanks for you got weed from me if you ever need it. Aliens pee from their fingers. Some do. That's not true of all of them. Gay marriage is just so simple. I mean, you can't offer, especially if it has impacts on the way that your taxes work and your family funds and the property rights. Like, if marriage was just a religious thing and it was literally just a ceremony like a quinceañera, right? You don't get tax breaks for having a quinceañera. Who gives a fuck about those? But it's not like I get a quinceañera. In my experience, it's only been like, what, 15-year-old little Spanish girls? Like, what? Or I guess Mexican specifically, right? I don't know if it's in other I guess Spanish speaking, but like whatever culture does that growing up, like I don't get one, and that's whatever. I also don't get a fucking yarmulke party. What do they do? I sound anti-Semitic because I don't know religious stuff. Yarmulke party? No, what the fuck? The I'm a man now. Jewish tradition. Fuck is that called, chat? I can't think of it right now. A bar mitzvah. Yeah, that one. Sorry, I grew up in the Midwest, not in Brooklyn, so I don't have any Jewish friends. All my friends drove tractors. I get a pass.
Liberty thing extends. What you're really doing is you're setting the ground game at same-sex marriage and tradition.
Wait, is that true? So bar mitzvah, is that really true? Bar mitzvah is dudes, bat mitzvah is ladies? Is that real? It's a goddamn yarmulke party now, though. Yeah, you get a yarmulke. You get your first yarmulke. I don't think that's true. You have to go catch a yarmulke in the wild, okay? You have to track it down. And when you catch yours, you have to bond with it. And then you train it to sit on your head and protect you from God. Or whatever. Turkey baster. Nice to see the guy who got me banned from Twitter for calling him an uncle. Oh, I don't know if I can say that. Of our people is now complaining that people he doesn't like get married. Yeah, that's true. You got to recharge the mitzvah. Ben is saying marriage is about making babies. I mean, obviously it's not. You can definitely have a union that makes babies, but like I don't know how he can justify from just a perspective of conservative the way that the government is supposed to interact with you. There is one relationship combination that gets specific governmental benefits by happening. Just as a conservative person who should want his connection with the government to be limited, right? Wouldn't he worry that union could be moved over to only gay people get specific benefits as like a form of like woke reparations or something? Like, wouldn't he be concerned of an equal but opposite thing? So I don't know why not just let everybody have the thing. If you're going to do benefits for marriage, which I think is stupid, but if you're going to do it, then everybody has to have access to it because like he's saying like, oh, what do you got to prove people are actually religious? Ben definitely thinks that people having frivolous marriages are bad. Ben definitely would be like, well, do they actually love each other? So I mean, like, if you have to prove if they love each other, like, what was that movie with Adam Sandler? And he was getting fake gay married, and they're like to the King of Queens. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, right? He's anti I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, but he doesn't ever apply the same logic over to the other. Of course not. Of course they don't. Sky Comment said, bobbing for giblets, like I said, to make your babies need a man. Pornhub, a lesbian, and turkey. Okay, well, Ben has gotten worse on marriage. He used to be a libertarian on marriage, pro-gay marriage. I mean, I don't know. I don't follow Ben Shapiro like that. But I'm not surprised. I don't understand how you can even make the anti-gay argument from any political point of view. It can only be religious.
Marriage are completely the same thing. And if you object to it, the only reason that will even allow you...
They don't even have to be completely the same thing. I think socially, don't we agree that gay marriage is not the same thing as like a traditional white people marriage, right? They're not the same thing socially. Usually it's like, oh, we're getting to go to a gay wedding. Oh, we're not over it yet. It's still a thing. We make jokes while we're there. Shit, the last fucking one I was at, definitely we did that the whole time. Like, it's not a traditional marriage, and that's the point. It's still got, I'm not going to say a novelty to it, but it's still a little hype because it's like, yeah, these people get to do this fucking thing. Like, no, you don't have to put it in, you don't have to codify that only straight people get fucking rights. I'm straight. I'm going to get married in a union that Ben and Shapiro should or ought to approve of in a vacuum. Probably doesn't like that we're leftists or open, but just on paper. So dumb. Shadow Monster. Thanks for the follow, dude.
You to do that is because of this crazy thing called religion.
Yeah, this is the point I'm always trying to get across to people is that you listen to these arguments, whether it's an argument about marriage, it's an argument about about abortion when life begins, even arguments about the definition of man and woman. Listen to the argument between a conservative and a liberal. And what you're going to find is that religion almost always comes into play. Someone's going to mention the Bible. But
Yep, I agree. And it's going to be the conservative.
Almost always, it's the person on the left who's bringing that into the conversation.
What?
Because, as you point out...
But you can't make an argument against gay marriage from a secular perspective, Matt. There's literally not an argument from a secular perspective against the concept of two people having a union in which the government recognizes that they have property rights and tax breaks. Like, what? Again, if you want to say it's not the same under your church, that would be a religious thing, though, wouldn't it?
That's the framework they want us to adopt.
Happy to talk to you about this, Matt Walsh. Not that you ever fucking would.
The argument, that's sort of like the ground on which they want to have this battle. They want to pretend that the only reason that we would believe the things that we believe and say what we're saying
believe the things that we
because
believe.
we've been told by our religion and we have no reasons outside of that. That, of course, that's totally illogical. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
And also, when it comes to marriage, I mean, there's a reason why it's not just Christian societies. It's not just Jewish people that have said that.
So now we're appealing to religion again? Some reason only straight marriage because only straight can make baby. But that's not a good argument, obviously, because you can't ban people that don't have kids or don't want kids from being married, even if they are, heterosexual couplings. Like it's simply not. It's simply not a quality argument. You can say it and say, "Oh, this is secular," but then once you start, literally the moment after you say, from a secular perspective, I don't want unions because they can't produce children. How do you justify that from a secular perspective? Do you think that unions are required to have kids? No. But you think that it's better within a union. Why do you think that? Like, there's no fucking foundation you can get to that is secular.
It's, that marriage is a fundamentally procreative union between man and woman. You look at every society in human history.
So every society in human history, that's not true. That's not true. Speaking of the religious base for both of these guys, religion is the Abrahamic Bible, right? Specifically the Old Testament, as the foundational texts that lay the groundwork for both of their faiths, Matt being a Christian and Ben being a Jewish man. The traditional marriage was not one man and one woman. It was many women and one man who was the property owner, and the women were property. And they had to have many kids, specifically sons. I don't understand at all. And then, like, your main guy, Jesus, if you're Matt, was an incel. So, like, what's the play here, man? He didn't even live the trad life.
And they have come down to that conclusion. I mean, there isn't any society in history that had anything like same-sex marriage as we have today. And not every society has been Christian or Jewish. So this is a conclusion that all people through history have arrived at. And it's not hard to see how they arrive at that conclusion. I mean, this is what I was trying to explain on Joe Rogan. It's the relationship between a man and a woman. That kind of relationship. It's just different in kind from any other sort of relationship. It has a capacity that none of these other relationships have, and that capacity makes it definitionally different. And it also makes that relationship more important to society than any other kind of relationship because it has the capacity to create people.
So we're only allowing people tax breaks based on their capacity for procreation.
It has to do.
Can two people who don't want kids get married, Matt? Just because I have the capacity to breed my very breedable wife? Maps Mimics, 50 biddies. Walsh is like 2 steps max away from straights must have children to keep their marriages valid. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You're right. He has a breeding fetish? I just like to come, chat. It's not about the baby for me.
And so that means it has to be
I just like whole, chat.
protected and actually respected in a way that no other relationship really has to be.
I need to get a vasectomy stat, dude.
We'll get back to more of this in just one.
No, thank you, Ben. No, thank you. Whatever this is, I'm skipping it. Don't care. Don't care. Holy shit, that's a long ad. Wow, that's a fucking real long ad.
Rely on sort of false construction. So what they will do is they'll say, well, polygamy was legal in the vast majority of cultures for a very long time. Therefore, marriage is not between one man and one woman. If you're including multiple people and you're narrowing the definition, this, of course, ignores the fact that every individual dyad within that polygamous institution is a man with one woman, meaning that the whole basis of even polygamous societies, as opposed to, by the way, there is no society on record in which the opposite is true, in which a woman marries multiple men. These societies do not exist.
So? Why does it matter if they... I don't understand why it matters if they exist. Just steel man it, even if they do. I don't even know if they do. Who cares? Probably. I can't imagine. There's never been one. I'm in school for anthropology, and it is the official position of the American Anthropology Association that gay marriage has no negative bearings on the stability of any society ever. Of course. No, they didn't have same-sex marriage. They just married their sister and their sister's maid and their dead brother's wife and any other. Yeah, always, absolutely. Matt's traditional marriage deets are not exactly. They're not exactly sterling. Thanks for the biddies.
The societies in which a man marries multiple women, we have decided over the course of time are not the ideal. And in fact, the Bible says are not the ideal, like right at the beginning. A man shall leave his father and mother, and he shall cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. I mean, that is a monogamous relationship at the very beginning of the Bible. I mean, that's the Bible, chapter 1 of Genesis. But
not really, because a man could become one flesh with his many wives. And a person would only have one set of mother and father from a cum standpoint. So marriage is a cultural universal. There's been no group of humans that did not have a marriage tradition. Marriage is something that has changed and shifted in meaning. There is no intrinsic traditional marriage. Thanks for the biddies. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what. Look, every marriage forever could have been between a man and a woman. Don't care. There's no argument for it. It doesn't matter. Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh could have the most perfect possible historical representation of the world they want to live in. I could steel man it that hard, and there's still no valid argument to keep it. There's no secular reasoning you can give that says that a union between a heterosexual couple, simply on the basis of possibility of procreation, notwithstanding that, of course, two people could have kids from other people and still raise those kids, or adoption, or never have any kids and still be a totally valid relationship. There's so many configurations that you could have. You can't make a secular argument that one type of union has any more value from a human rights standpoint. Like, you just can't. The only thing they can do is put value on birth probability. That's insane. It doesn't take a union to create a birth. If it did, then maybe you'd have a point, but you don't. If biologically we couldn't have kids until the Lord oversaw our union, that would have significant impacts on our society. But this is not the world we live in, however. You can get knocked up for all sorts of reasons.
Even if you were to argue in favor of cultures that allowed polygamy, the idea there was that it was always a man-woman-child. It's just the man was pairing off with other women. It wasn't a polycule in FTX style here.
Yeah, and the polygamous unions, if anything, it's kind of the
CVCG, thanks for the 12 months. That's a year.
Exception that proves the rule, because, I mean, as you point out, there was never, as far as I know, there was never the reverse of a bunch of men marrying one woman. And why is that? Well, it's because
I'm confident that there were women with multiple husbands. I know for a fact that there were women throughout history with multiple male lovers that were considered concubines, much like men in the Bible. It interferes with their breeding kink. Many successful cultures have had the polyamory and polygamy throughout the whole thing. As it happens, chat, everybody likes a hole.
Maybe societies in the past that had polygamy, you have even more procreation if it's a man with multiple women. Now, if it was a woman with multiple men, then that's not going to result in more and more babies being born. But the other way it does.
It has.
So that's why it's good. Allow. Mycroft, thanks for the 100 biddies.
And so these were societies, especially in more primitive times, who
He does think intermarriage should be legal, though, right? Does he?
They also recognized that the purpose of marriage,
because that's his religious convictions. But he said that this wasn't based on his religious convictions.
One of the fundamental definitional purposes is procreation, and that's where polygamy comes from. Now, we don't have that in our society for a lot of reasons, and one of them is that we recognize that a child needs a mom and a dad, and so
it's not true.
Not.
There's literally no data to support this, by the way. Anytime you look up studies of this, what the data shows is that the more parents, the better. Specifically because obviously you're going to have a little bit of this kid needs attention, but specifically it was economic because they commodify survival necessities. I guarantee you, studies would show after 50 years of decommodification, I guarantee you, studies would show that as long as the parent was attentive and they had care in the way that we determine, like they had childcare, daycare or something during the day, and they had good education stuff, I guarantee you one-parent households could make it happen for sure. And the studies would show that like all you really need is an attentive adult. Now, obviously, I think multiple people being quality parents is better because you get more perspectives from people and you get more. You just get more worldly experience, and of course, if you have more resources in a multi-parent situation, you're in this world where we do commodify everything. It's definitely you're gonna have a better chance. But it's like, why don't you think about that for 2 seconds? He's got little weird hands. We know for a fact that in ancient times, marriage was to make peace or expand wealth and prestige. Yeah, it still fucking is.
Not a dad and multiple moms, but a mom and a dad. And that's going to be the best thing for the child. And that's really that's what this conversation should revolve around. It's like, what's the best for a child? Every child that is born has a mother and a father. There's no other way to create a child.
Uh-oh, he's going to get really fucking mad when that stops being true. I mean, obviously it's already like true of some people, like their genders or whatever, like maybe two women, but one of them can get pregnant or something. You know what I mean? But we're getting so close to not really needing any of that. Any two people can start making babies. We just gotta figure it out. It's on the way, dude. Or at least any two people can be part of the baby. Maybe you would need certain chromosomes or something, but we don't know yet. We have no clue.
And is it best for that child to be raised by those two people or not? I think obviously it is.
Yeah, Matt, this is the only reason that marriage is a social institution in the first place. Society has no interest in who you pair up with and have sex with. Society has an interest in how families are created because they are the units upon which society is built. Every historian, what their salt, understands this. I mean, it's something Robert Nisbet wrote back in the 1950s, is the idea that societies are not built of individuals, they're actually built of family units.
In the 1950s? Whoa! He wrote about the nuclear family in the 1950s? That's surprising to me.
It's because you're born into a family unit, and then you form new family units, and these are actually the way that societies work. And societies that abandon that in favor of what we have sort of abandoned it to, atomistic individualism, they remove all of the social structures that actually provide for a healthy society. The only reason that we even care about marriage is because of the production and rearing of children. Again, society has no interest whatsoever in you want to have sex with a person and you live in the same room as the person. Why exactly would society care about that?
You guys care so much. What do you mean? Why are they pretending that we're not actually homophobic? Why are they... God, they're trying so hard to get literally anybody to believe them on this shit. You can't say openly homophobic stuff like this all the time and be like, oh, but also we're not, though. We don't actually care, dude. It's just, think of the kids. Think of the kids. How many gay people do you know with kids? It happens. It's happening more and more. They're all good parents. I'm sure that's not true, but most of them are good parents. Like, think about the way that, like, the scrutiny you have to go through as a gay couple right now to even get custody of children, and like the financial well-being you have to be like. The standards are so much higher for same-sex couples right now to even get to that point. The odds of them not being able to provide a solid living home for a child or more, for like one or more children, like, it's just wild to me. Like, it's pretty obvious that these kids are coming out well-adjusted and fine. Yeah, well, I'm also thinking about kids. He's only thinking about kids, dude.
And give benefit to that. How does that help society in any way? The answer is it doesn't. Marriage is a social institution specifically because we have an interest in the bearing and rearing of children.
A Christian, no. There is no value in religion. Say it with me, chat. There's no value in religion. I don't know why I'm doing a song. There's no value in religion. Religion has no value. It's anti-leftist. It's also just anti-reality, which is more important to me. I don't really care what your political views are. I mean, I do. I wish you would agree with me, but I would more. I more think that anyone with any religion whatsoever, it's a crutch, dude. It's not a good thing. All of it's bad. It's always been bad. Net negative value. It's not even close. It's not just a net negative value. It's like a transactionally negative. Like, you don't have to wait for the net for it to be negative. There's never two steps forward, one step back when it comes to religion. From a foundational point of view, like you literally can't operate in reality if you think that you're inherently sinful and that somehow there was a blood transaction and your death god couldn't think of a more creative way to forgive you for sins that he created the parameters for you to even get than to murder and torture his own son? ? That he had to come down in the form of an angel and seed a teenager with? Yeah, dude, miss me with that shit. Your brain don't work.
Children. And so essentially what has happened here is that we took a social institution, and then in order to rewrite the social rules, we gutted
use your brain for 2 seconds.
The social institution.
Jesus Christ. It must be great to live in a world where fucking magic spells and shit exist.
In favor of a redefinition of marriage. I think that's the thing people don't understand.
Anti-theism arc? What do you mean arc? Anti-theism maintains course from day one on the internet.
And when they argue about same-sex marriage.
I am an anti-theist, and I'm right.
The tip of the iceberg, meaning that the redefinition of marriage occurred back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with no fault of...
These people don't exist without religion at all. Like, literally, they can't. There's no foundation for conservatism outside of a religious framework, even if they make secular concessions to it, even if they try to pretend they're secular. You see all these dudes that used to be big atheists, but now they're conservatives, Carl Benjamin, etc. Like, they all circled back around to religion's actually a good thing because they're dumb. Yeah, I did an atheist Bible study for years. Pretending magic exists rocks. Yeah, like during your D&D session is dope. Playing a video game, whatever, man. Yeah. It's all cool. That's harmless, though. Your D&D session is way more harmless than fucking religion ever was. Oh, you're inherently unclean? I'm sure that won't lead to any fucking problems in your life. How do you feel about sex? You're real open, have good communication with your partners with sex? Have any problems coupling with people due to the fact that you're always fucking awkward and shamed about everything? You don't have any inherent mommy or daddy issues due to the enforced hierarchy of your household, right? Certainly your religion hasn't informed any of your politics at any point in your life. You know what I mean? Like, there's no aspect of your life untouched by trauma. Religion is constant trauma. Whether you acknowledge it or not is one thing. Is what it is, man. You can't possibly, like, it's like saying, oh yeah, my living like a capitalist didn't at all fuck up my brain and make me think certain ways that were antithetical to like an actual ethical outlook on human life, right? Like, you've been taught from a foundational level that you can only do things through the system of commodification. Think about how long it took you to understand like getting rid of like the concept of money or states or, you know, whatever, just how you had to deprogram yourself from that. Now imagine the most inborn possible thing, the familial religious experience. You're fucked. And it's not just because it's not real. It's because of the abuses that get to exist within that. And you might say, oh, I've never been abused. And it's like, you can't live in a system that literally shows you the abuse of a man as a good thing for your benefit, with the blood and the gore and the suffering and the way that love is shown.
It's cold.
A man that's willing to kill his son, the person he's supposed to love, because he prostrates himself to an unjustly hierarchical system where God hasn't earned any of these things. In fact, God is so fickle that he's murdered people, and then he had to put a rainbow in the sky to remind himself of this. Like, oh, I better not fucking kill anybody again. Not to mention that's just a ripped off Akkadian myth from the god Asher or whatever. You know, I could go on. I don't have to. Rizunabe, thanks for following, dude. Like, religion has no place in your life, and most people who stay there do so literally just stubbornly or through fear. I'm going to lose my community, which is disgusting. If you here's an example. Oh, here's an example of why religion is bad and homophobia and all this. And this will be the end of this video. Like, homophobia only lives from a religious framework. Transphobia only lives from a religious framework. Fear of death and the unknown. Fear of death. You were dead before. Fear of death. It's so wild. Having grown up secular, people who fear death, like you fear death from like a primal function. You fear the concept of dying from like an emotional, I got stuff I want to do. I got people that, whatever. But like the concept of experiencing death isn't scary. Not to me. And it shouldn't be to you, because life is like this little glimpse of the universe being able to observe itself. That's the point that's fucking interesting. You have like, maybe if you're lucky, 100 years. Super lucky. Probably closer to 70, 80 years. Out of the billions of years that have existed, the time scale on this universe is insane. And we get to live here right now just for a blip. We didn't experience a single second prior to it, and we won't experience a single second after. So this is all we get. It cheapens the experience of life. It cheapens what you should be doing, and that's being happy and trying to be happy, because we only have a little bit of time. So let's try to experience stuff. It doesn't mean you have to go travel the world, but it means you can if you want to. This kind of stuff. Losing everything that matters to them. Yeah, of course. But, like, if the person that you love most dies and goes to hell, is it heaven when you get there? Because that's the system that God set up, not the system that I set up. The person you love most in your life, your child, your lover, your mom, whoever it is, the person that would, if you lost them right now, would crush you. Think of that person. And the God you dedicated your life to sent them to hell because they were gay or trans, or maybe they just didn't believe. Maybe they didn't repent in time before their death. Maybe they had a sin on their ledger, if you're a Catholic. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they just didn't get a chance. Maybe they're in the car and they were saying some shit and then a car accident happened. And then you learn that they go to hell. And then you're in eternity forever without that person. Now, I've heard two answers to this. Number one is crying, which is the correct response. Oh, shit, that is fucked up. Number two is, well, I wouldn't care. It's heaven. That's scarier to me. Why believe in a God that would take your love for a person away? Or mitigate it in such a way that it wouldn't be utter suffering to be without them? Loving somebody isn't just the good part. It is being worried about them and loving them and missing them. That's what love feels like. Like a piece of your heart's walking around without you. To take that away, that God is cruel. Luckily, he doesn't exist. So you're good.